This program is brought to you by the partners of A Rood Awakening International. Help others find truth. Support A Rood Awakening International today.
Where were you? What were you doing when President Kennedy was shot? When the Berlin Wall came down? Or when the second plane struck the Twin Towers and suddenly the entire world had the same collective thought, terrorists have attacked America? At that very moment, in a small study in Jerusalem, in pure silence with no windows, something miraculous happened to Nehemia Gordon. Something that solidified his mission in life, a mission that would undo something his family had done to change all of Judaism 11 generations before. Tonight, you're going to find out what happened in that little room on September 11th, 2001, because it's the end of the sixth day, the sun is set, and this is Shabbat Night Live!
Michael, it's going to be a great show tonight.
It will be.
Stand by, studio, 30 seconds.
Thank you. One minute's air, Michael.
Oh, thanks.
All right.
Thanks, Ellie.
Well, Shabbat Shalom to our fans, and welcome to Shabbat Night Live. Tonight we have all kinds of things to share with you. Some very exciting things that happened to Nehemia Gordon, for example, 16 years ago, and some things that are happening today. Speaking of today, it is the first Shabbat of a new month on the biblical Hebrew calendar. We measure Shabbats, of course, by the sundown, so we are now officially into the month of Mar Heshvan, according to the astronomically and agriculturally corrected biblical Hebrew calendar. You can find out what this calendar is all about, the one you're seeing on the screen right now, and how to get your copy of it at aroodawakening.tv/calendar. Now, tonight, Michael Rood welcomes Nehemia Gordon for the fifth and final exciting episode of The Gentiles Shall Know My Name, this handy-dandy set right here. And right now, please help me welcome my co-host for this evening, the Director of Ministry Development for Rood Awakening International, Annie Reed.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Annie.
How are you?
Excellent, excellent. You know, talking about Nehemia.
Yes.
This is an exciting thing in his life. I had the opportunity to listen to his story about this, and it was just really engaging to listen how 11 generations ago, his grandfather had done something, 11 generations removed that is, had done something that changed all of Judaism, and he suddenly realized on September 11th, 2001, that his job in life was to undo what was done in his very family. It's a fascinating story. It'll bring tears to your eyes. So stay tuned tonight for that story.
And it's obviously God ordained because he's fulfilling that mission today.
He is, yep.
So we're excited to share that story with you and all of Nehemia's findings, because right now we're up to 250 manuscripts.
Yes.
With the name.
Yes.
Now people ask us, how do we know the name is spelled that way? When it comes down to it, that's how it is in Scripture.
Right.
So we're excited to share more information. It's our final episode with Nehemia. We're sad to see him go, but we're learning so much. You don't want to miss this.
Right. Now, Nehemia, of course, had prayed long and hard about his mission. That's why he was in this little room that we were talking about in the monologue. He was praying, God, what is my mission in life? And then this is when it all came to a head. And we all need prayer in our lives. And we have some prayers that have been answered for us, represented by what's in this basket today.
That's
Can you
right.
tell us what's in this basket?
Yes. So every single day, we pray over the thank you letters that go out to our partners. And these are people that have donated. Some have donated $1 and some have donated hundreds of dollars. And we are very grateful for those that provide the means for us to minister to everyone around the world. So we want you to know that we do lay hands on it. Oftentimes we rub anointing oil over the letters, but we take this very, wholeheartedly. This is very important to us. We want to bless you as much as you're blessing us. So today, instead of bringing out prayers that are found on our prayer wall, we want to pray over these thank you letters with you because we want to show you the power of prayer, and we want to thank you. We want to bless you with this opportunity to thank those that have sown into this ministry and provided us the means to come into your television today.
That's right. This is a prayer answered for us to be able to
Yes.
keep doing what Yehovah has called us to do. It's only because of you.
Yes, so please join us as we pray over these prayers, thank you letters, if you wouldn't mind. Father, we are so grateful for every single person that is led to give to this ministry, Father, and the amount does not matter. We are just grateful that you have provided the means for Michael's message to reach the nations, Father, and not his message, but God's message, Yehovah's message, your message, that your kingdom is being delivered to those that are seeking answers, Father, those that are lost. Father, we pray over each and every single individual. You know what is going on in their lives. Father, whatever their needs are, whether it's financial or spiritual, whether it's healing or wisdom, Father, we just pray and stand in agreement that you are going to provide those answers, that you are going to provide those needs, Father. We pray over every single person, Father, that their donation is returned to them sevenfold, and we pray a blessing that is fueled by you, by your word, by all that you do. We declare victory over them. We declare courage, bravery, love, joy, happiness, peace, and that their life is just a life that is whole and blessed. In Yeshua's name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Annie.
Of course.
Now, if you have a prayer request for us, you can go to our prayer page at roodawakening.tv/prayer, or you can always call us at 888-766-3610. Now, if this is the first time watching Shabbat Night Live, we invite you to submit a prayer request, of course. Give us a praise report if you'd like. And we also have a special gift for you.
Yes, for anybody that is new to this ministry, we have 2 teachings that we love to send to you absolutely free. Now, this offer is not available just in the United States. It's offered throughout the world, so it doesn't matter where you're located. We'd love to send it out to you. It's a teaching on the Red Sea crossing and Sodom and Gomorrah. But we are going to change this teaching fairly soon too, so keep a lookout. It might look a little bit differently when it comes to your home, and it might include 2 different new teachings by that time period, but we want you to know truth, share it with others. We want you to interact with this ministry. We're here for you. And we'll also send you this catalog with more information about who we are. And the nice convenient thing about the catalog on the back is that you'll see an order form. So even if you don't have the internet access, you are still able to purchase our items should you choose to.
Wonderful. Thank you. You know, we have all kinds of things going on here. We have the thing that we are most thankful for recently is the larger print edition of our chronological gospel. So many people have asked for this. Here's the regular size, by the way. So you can tell that the type in there obviously is going to be a lot larger, because what we did is we essentially just took this type and expanded it. And it's the very same things on the very same pages as the regular size. And it's wonderful if you struggle with reading small type, as I do. I have to put on reading glasses and stare and do this kind of thing.
I need glasses all the time.
So if you appreciate having a larger print Bible, especially for the chronological Gospels and all the treasures in here about all the background of what was happening in the world during Yeshua's time, that is going to be a real treasure for you. So that is something new that you can find on our store. And also, we are sending these in every package.
We're sending 2 free stickers in every single package, and we've shared a little bit about these stickers with you. We believe in the name of God. We believe in the name Yehovah, and so we are giving 2 free stickers to any package that goes out of A Rood Awakening, absolutely free, because we want you to bless your home. Not just your home, but your car. Put it wherever you need it, wherever you want the blessing of Yehovah to sustain your life. So. Right,
and the reason why we're doing this is during Hurricane Irma, you may remember seeing a story of how some folks had written this very name, Yehovah, on the boards that they used to cover up their windows to protect against the hurricane. Well, they boarded up their home with this name on there, believing that their home would be just fine. They went into their house, weathered out the storm. The storm passed over, remember that term, and they came out and there was devastation all around, but their home was fine. And so that is something that really inspired Michael to say, hey, we want everybody to have these. Put it on your home, put it on your car, believe that Yehovah will keep you safe. And it's not a magic sticker or something like that where you think that, it's like waving a magic wand or something, but it's just a declaration of your faith, kind of like wearing tzitzits.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to suggest. It's exactly like wearing tzitzits. You're setting yourself apart.
Right.
And you're reminding yourself, tzitzits are not for other people to know that you're being set apart. It's for yourself. It's a reminder to ourselves to keep the 10 Commandments. And this is a reminder to ourselves of who our God is and how powerful He is. Now, we are offering more than 2 on our website at $1 each. And the $1 just covers the cost of the sticker. We're not here to make money on these stickers whatsoever. This is not about money. For Michael, this is about a mission and a mandate that he has to see His name protecting His people.
And you can use that as a challenge for yourself. I mean, put it on your car, and then, you have to be careful in traffic that you're representing the name of Yehovah on the back of your car. You've got to be well behaved. And that's what I always told people when I worked at a place where they didn't understand tzitzit, and they thought I was saying that I was better than everybody else. And I told my boss about it. I said, no, this is, if anything, it's for them to call me on my conduct, to say, hey, you wear those things, you're supposed to be a representative of the Messiah. Let's see you represent the Messiah right. So it became a reflection, like you just said, Annie, a reflection on yourself as to your own conduct. And so let it be that as well when you put the sticker on your car, on your home, or wherever. Now, speaking of teachings from Michael Rood, he has some really great teachings on the History Channel coming up. Chronological Gospel Season 2, Revelation. It's also coming up on satellite, or it's on satellite right now. And we're just praying that it'll be on the History Channel very soon.
That's right. Our goal is 2018. As we know, the History Channel is extremely expensive. And so we just want to make sure that we are financially prepared for the expense that will come along with it, because we know it's going to be a great tool to reach the unbeliever. So
that's right. And right now you can see it on Uplift TV. You can see it on
GEB America.
GEB America. You can also see it on
Enlace TV in España.
That's right.
And soon we're going to be on a few other stations. We're actually working with some local stations here in the United States that also want a Rood Awakening. And we're also going to be on a new internet network that is led by a huge television evangelist.
Wonderful.
That reached out to us because he loves Michael and wants to have Michael's message in mainstream Christianity.
Oh, wonderful. That's great. And if you want to keep up with all what's going on in that realm, you can go to roodawakening.tv/schedule. Now, coming up in just a few minutes, Nehemia Gordon joins Michael Rood for the 5 episodes in a new series, The Gentiles Shall Know My Name. And by the way, in addition to getting the teaching, we have a special right now where you can get a bundle. You can get Nehemia's book, The Hebrew Yeshua versus the Greek Jesus. Wonderful book.
Yes.
And also the Hebrew Gospel of Matthew, all together.
And this is your last weekend. Again, we only have these specials available while we're airing the program on Shabbat Night Live. So this is going to be your last weekend to receive this bundle in particular. After this, we will unfortunately not have the availability to do so.
Right, but you will still be able to get the teaching.
Yes.
So that is a good thing. Now, if you miss it, don't worry. You can always catch the replay of tonight's show at ShabbatNightLive.com. You can also listen to replays on Rood Radio. Just click on the radio link at the top of our homepage at roodawakening.tv. And like Annie's been saying all along tonight, we really appreciate you watching tonight's teaching. And if you'd like to support Michael Rood's ministry, you can get something in return with our monthly love gift, including an exclusive teaching and a model of the Second Temple. We've got more details coming up right now, so keep watching to find out how you can get it right now.
Waiting without knowing when an answer will come takes patience and discipline, a test of faith that many of the most famous people in the Bible failed. Even the apostles fell into the trap of impatience early in the book of Acts. What can we learn from those in the Bible who had their patience tested? Michael Rood reveals the story behind the apostles' test of faith in Learning to Walk by the Spirit, a special teaching available only in October.
The apostles were told to go to Jerusalem and wait. They were led by their flesh to vote Matthias into the number of the apostles, but Yeshua had another plan.
In Learning to Walk by the Spirit, you'll learn the intriguing connections between King Saul and the apostles, and how we can avoid succumbing to the temptation of doing things our own way. Learning to Walk by the Spirit is not on YouTube and it's not available for sale. But we'll send you this exclusive teaching as our thanks for your love gift donation in October of just $50. Or with a donation of $100 or more, we'll send you the teaching plus a magnificent model of the Second Temple. This model is solid cast stone, set on a felt-bottom solid wood base, and includes gold-painted accents and an inspiring verse from Psalm 27. As a thank you from Michael Rood, when you donate $100 or more in October, you'll receive this special gift, plus Learning to Walk by the Spirit, a teaching about King Saul, the apostles, and having the patience to wait on the Almighty's Word.
Much of the book of the Acts, we are actually going to be following Paul as he is led by the Spirit, and incredible things are going to happen.
Call now or visit us online to pledge your support and receive these exclusive gifts. Act now. This is a limited time offer. Make your love gift donation now.
So what is the truth of things like man and dinosaurs together and the real age of the earth? Well, we have a true expert with us to help us figure out these things today. We're talking with Bruce Malone. Bruce, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You know, you've written several books. How many books have you written now?
7 books.
7 books?
And they are very popular. They're all on a layman's level, very highly illustrated, easy to understand. Each page is a different topic, books on creation.
And I have 2 of them right in front of me here. I've enjoyed them myself. We actually got one for my son. I was so intrigued by it, we picked one up for my son.
Nice.
And there was one particular thing I enjoyed in this one book you've got here, Have You Considered? And it is a question about dinosaurs and dinosaur skin. You mentioned that in this book, there's a guy who goes to Alberta, Canada every year just to do some exploring.
Yep.
And I used to live right near that place. I'm pretty sure he's talking about Drumheller, Canada.
All right. No wonder it caught your attention.
Yeah, and I used to live right near there. And it says that not just a skin impression like a fossil was found, but actual dinosaur skin. So how can that be if dinosaurs lived millions of years ago?
Well, the short answer to that is there is no possibility, because skin is made up of highly fragile organic molecules, proteins, enzymes. And they immediately start to fly apart and defragment and turn back into basic molecules with time. Oxygen, background radiation, they just can't survive it. DNA has a half-life of about 500 years. So in 2,000 years, you're down to less than 10% of the amount you started with. And in 1,000,000 years, there wouldn't be a single fragment left. So yeah, when this man finds not just the impression of dinosaur, but actual blackened skin that you can peel off and measurable amounts of DNA, and we found plants that are supposedly 100 million years old, they could still measure measurable amounts of DNA. What that tells us is that time frame is fantasy. It couldn't be millions of years old, or those things would not be there, and yet they are. So, one of the many, many strong evidences that the time frame the world needs to explain things by evolution without God can't be true, because the evidence contradicts it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, speaking of dinosaurs, and I used to be really into dinosaurs. I just found them fascinating.
Yeah.
And so,
most kids do too.
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess I was
You're just a big kid.
I was a big kid, is what it was. And I always was intrigued by the stories, the medieval stories, and even the ancient Chinese stories of dragons.
Yep.
So, is there any plausibility to the notion that perhaps dragons were dinosaurs?
Not just plausibility, it's almost a lock-shut case. That, as a matter of fact, Sir Richard Owens, he is the person who in England in 1842 found this enormous big bone. It was obviously, bigger than any animal we know of. It wasn't an elephant or a rhinoceros. It was some extinct creature that was huge, towering above mankind. And he got to name it, and he called it dinosaur, meaning thundering lizard, and that's a technical term that was used to describe a type of creature. But he went back and forth between calling these creatures, the bones that he had found, dinosaurs, and calling them dragons. Matter of fact, there was a book published at the same time called The Oppendium of Sea Dragons. of bones of various huge sea creatures that turned out to be seagoing plesiosaurs-type dinosaurs. Now, let me give you an analogy. Today, the technical name for the dog family is canine. The common name for them are dogs. Scientists will call them dogs, but they'll also call them canines. Early on in the discovery of dinosaurs, they were commonly called dragons as the common name. As a matter of fact, dragons show up throughout history, throughout mankind, across the globe. The Chinese have a rich culture of talking about dragons. There are ancient documents, the Pelagian history in ancient India, where they say things like, Africa has elephants, India has the largest elephants, and also have dragons. So they're talking about something the size of elephants that aren't elephants, that they referred to as dragons. There are depictions of things that look exactly like apatosauruses, pictographs in Arches National Park and in the Grand Canyon type rocks. We find them carved in Australia, in South America. In Angkor, Cambodia, there's a temple that goes back about 800 years where they've got a relief carving of a deer, and below that they've got a bird, and they've got all these things that are real animals. And right in the middle of it, there's an exact representation of a stegosaurus. It looks exactly like you expect a stegosaurus to look. So how come all these cultures know about dinosaurs? That's the real question. They called them dragons. And by the way, the Bible in the chapter of Job refers to something it's called a behemoth, chapter 40 of Job. That's some ancient Hebrew name. We don't know what the animal is, but it's described as an animal that towers above man, bones like iron, a tail like an enormous cedar tree. That's not an elephant. That's not a hippopotamus. It sounds like an apatosaurus, lives by rivers, drinketh up the Jordan, and so on. Well, the flood would have buried everything. All the animals, all the plants, created the coal seams, created the rock layers somewhere in the 5,000 year ago time frame, or maybe a little less. Dinosaurs would have been buried. That's why we find their bones. Noah took 2 of every representative animal, 7 of the clean animals. They spread out after the flood within hundreds of years. They're filling the niches of the new earth. Dinosaurs would have been among them, but they would have been called dragons. And the cultures of the world would have been aware of them, and that's exactly what we find. I believe they've since went extinct. They've been hunted out of existence. They didn't adapt well. Many other animals fall into that category.
I suppose it's hard these days to have a photograph or something like that of a dinosaur because of things like Photoshop, where people will automatically call it fake. I remember seeing something from the 1850s with all these cowboys holding up a...
And that actually turned out to be a fake, folks. Yeah, and those things happen, without a doubt. You know what? You know how counterfeiters discover fake bills? They become so familiar with the real bill that they immediately know a fake when they see it, because there is a real bill, a counterfeit can be made. There are footprints found with dinosaur tracks down in the Paluxy River in Texas, clear from the 1920s. In the 1930s, depression was happening. People were carving these things to make money, and there were lots of fakes. So it's assumed whenever we find a depiction of a dinosaur, like these carvings, like burial stones in Peru, they're just labeled fakes. This is just fake. Because it doesn't fit the worldview that's being taught in the education, school, media system. It's taught as a fact. Dinosaurs died 60 million years ago, yet we find soft tissue, stretchy skin that's still there, that can't be there if that's true. We find depictions that are pulled right out of tombs that obviously weren't fake. We find stuff on an Angkor temple that couldn't have been faked. We find descriptions in literature of these creatures that were called dragons that sound a lot like dinosaurs that weren't faked. So you have to explain away the vast majority of the evidence to hang on to a worldview that says there's never been a flood, there's never been a creator. Well, it's the worldview that's wrong, not the evidence. The evidence fits the fact that dinosaurs were dragons, and they really did exist with mankind, both before and after the flood, at least for a while after the flood.
I notice in your other book here, in the brilliant Made in the Image of God, one of these depictions you're talking about, When did you say the dinosaurs were first discovered? In
1842.
1842. The first time it was called a dinosaur.
We were aware of them long before that in cultures everywhere.
Right. And one of
the word dinosaur was coined in 1842.
Okay, yeah, so way before then, obviously, in Peruvian culture.
Yes.
We have a photograph on page 15 of your book here. I think we'll show it up on the screen. This is not just, you can't guess that, oh, maybe this is some other animal. Maybe it's an elephant.
Doubt.
There is no doubt. This is a dinosaur, no doubt about it. I'm looking at it going, wow.
There's depictions of things that look like, Tyrannosaurus type. There's depictions of Stegosauruses, Apatosauruses. And they're immediately just labeled fakes. But that doesn't mean they are. That just means it doesn't fit the worldview of those who don't want to accept the evidence. And there are enough of these, of enough different styles and enough from a very ancient 2,000 year ago or older time period that I think the evidence is overwhelming. They are real. And they fit a biblical worldview very well. There's no contradiction between dinosaurs and man living at the same time biblically. It only contradicts the evolutionary desire to have this huge time frame.
Okay, well, we'll learn more about dinosaurs and man and all the rest of it that surrounds this interesting fact of Bible versus fiction. We'll have more next time with Bruce Malone. Join us then.
With archaeological technology advancing more rapidly than any period in recorded history, an ever-increasing number of ancient Hebrew manuscripts are coming to light.
It doesn't matter what school you went to, where you thought you learned Hebrew, we're going to deal with things, ladies and gentlemen, that are revelation from heaven that have been set up for generations to come to pass.
Michael Rood and Hebrew scholar Nehemia Gordon reveal the fulfillment of ancient prophecies in our present age in The Gentiles Shall Know My Name.
I looked through hundreds of manuscripts searching for this exact text.
Pre-order The Gentiles Shall Know My Name right now on DVD or Blu-ray. You'll get all 5 episodes now playing on Shabbat Night Live. Plus, The Hebrew Yeshua versus Greek Jesus by Nehemia Gordon. And The Hebrew Gospel of Matthew, all at $20 off. Pre-order this exclusive bundle now by phone or online. Hurry, this is a limited time offer.
The composite of the gospel records tell us that before the Passover lamb was sacrificed the following morning, that Yeshua had his Last Supper with his disciples, in which he took bread, arton, leavened bread, and he took wine, and he said, "This represents my body, which will be broken for you. This cup represents my shed blood, which will pay for the iniquity." It is this very thing that the Melchizedek shared with Abraham. As Yeshua said, Abraham saw my day and rejoiced. And when the Melchizedek brought forth bread and wine, he shared with them about the coming of the Messiah, about his broken body, about his shed blood. And Abraham gave a tenth of everything that he owned and laid it at the feet of the Melchizedek. He saw Yeshua's day and he rejoiced. And so now, every time we do this, every Sabbath, every meal in which there's bread and wine, in which we take this and we bless the Most High. Baruch atah Yehovah Eloheinu melech ha'olam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Blessed are you, Yehovah, our Elohim, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. Yeshua said, "This is my body, which is broken for you." As often as you do it in remembrance of me. And then Yeshua took the cup, and he said, "Blessed are you, Yehovah, our Elohim, King of the universe, who brings forth the fruit of the vine," the creator of the fruit of the vine. And every time we do this, we do remember his death and what he did for us until he comes. One day at the marriage supper of the Lamb, Yeshua will lift his cup and say, I have not had a drop of this, as I promised at the Last Supper. I've been waiting for you. Now, l'chaim, to life everlasting. For the past 4 weeks, we have been in the studio with Hebrew scholar Nehemia Gordon, and we have been allowing the Jews to interpret all the scriptures the Jews wrote. And at the end of the series, we promised we would give plenty of time for the Gentiles to interpret all the scriptures the Gentiles wrote. I really hate to see this come to an end because there are very few people out there on planet Earth that I have access to that I can learn from. But when I'm with Nehemia, over these past 18 years that I've known him, he's 20 years younger than I am. He's young enough to be my son, but yet anytime I get together with Nehemia and the time that we spent together here, it's just... I get to immerse myself in such wisdom and knowledge in the scripture that I just don't get to do from any other source. And so it has been my privilege to share his life with you. And I want to take you to a particular incident that is extremely important, an incident that wove our lives together in a way that I could not have expected. And we go back to the week of September 3rd of 2001. I was in Costa Rica. I had just finished up working on a project, and I was praying, and I heard the voice of the Almighty by the Spirit. I heard while praying, get a bag, pack it, get to America, and get all of your material, get everything out of America, get it down to Costa Rica immediately. So the next day I was on a plane, I flew up, I got all my materials out of America down to Costa Rica. As soon as I arrived, I went out to dinner with some friends, and I said, I feel such an urgency that there's something I need to do right now. I don't know what it is. And then Frank Hawks looked across the table and said, you need to go to Iceland. I said, that's it. I need to go to Iceland. Never thought of Iceland a day in my life. Here I am in a tropical paradise, Costa Rica, and the next thing is go to Iceland. Well, what I didn't know was going on that very week in Iceland is that the news media was playing over and over and over the words of the crazy man from Israel. That week, a man came from Israel and was on the news media that was broadcast all week long that the Muslims were about to do something so dramatic that would change the entire world. He was called a racist, a bigot, the crazy man from Israel, and at the end of the week, he got on a plane, but yet they kept playing that press release, him actually saying this on Icelandic television over and over and over, and at the end of the week, on Sunday, he got on a plane and went back to Israel. On Sunday, I was on a plane for Iceland. I arrived after spending the night in Baltimore, waiting for the next flight to get over there. I arrived and having no idea why I was there. I prayed with the people that picked me up, having never met them before. I said, I have no idea why I'm here. Will you pray with me? As we prayed outside of Inge's bed and breakfast there outside of Reykjavik, I knew that when I woke up, I would have the answer. A few hours later, slamming fist on the door. And that was when Inge opened the door, flung it open and said, something terrible has just happened in America. And I said, that is what I was waiting for. Not knowing what I was waiting for. Put on my house coat, walked in the other room, and I stood there and watched the second plane hit the World Trade Center. What I didn't know that was going on at that very time, which was in the middle of the afternoon in Israel, something profound that the Almighty was doing. Not only had the warning come from Israel to Iceland, in that day I was on national television. I was on national television all week long because I had a message to deliver, and I didn't know what it was until I got there. But I did not know that what was happening in Israel at that very hour, and would not find out for years, was something that would change my life and would have something major to do with what our program is today. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to let Nehemia Gordon tell us a story of what happened on that afternoon in Israel, that morning in New York City. Nehemia, tell the story.
Thanks, Michael.
So I was kind of minding my own business. I was working on my master's degree at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem back in 2001, and I had a little research position which was on something called the Hebrew University Bible Project. And what I would do is I would sit there in this office with no windows, and the walls were lined with books, thousands and thousands of books, and I would just sit there with my stack of photographs and a stack of printed pages, and my job was to proofread what's called the Aleppo Codex. That's the most accurate copy of the Bible in existence. It was written in the year 924, completed 924 in Tiberias by the master scribe Aaron ben Asher. And to this day, when they want to print a Bible in Hebrew, they base it on the Aleppo Codex. So my job was to make sure the printing they were doing at Hebrew University was perfect, matching the Aleppo Codex. It was very tedious.
And you were like, well back in the line. You were proofing proofreaders who were proofing proofreaders.
It had already been checked 3 times at least, or maybe I was the third. And coming along, it had been done already. I was, meaning by the time I got there, I'd sometimes sit there for 8 hours and be checking every little minutia of jot and tittle, and it was perfect. So you're kind of going crazy because you're looking for the mistakes. That's my job, to find mistakes, and there are no mistakes. It's perfect. So I'm sitting there and I'm doing my job, and one of the things that at that point for years I had been praying, it was a prayer I had, which is I wanted to know how to pronounce the Father's name. As I went through my studies at Hebrew University of Jerusalem, one of the things I've been told is that we don't know the vowels of the Father's name, of the name Yud He Vav He. We know the consonants, no question about the consonants. They appear 6,827 times in the Aleppo Codex, but we don't know how to pronounce that. Because in Hebrew, the vowels and the consonants are written as 2 different sets of symbols. The consonants are 22 consonants, letters, and then the vowels are a series of dots and dashes above and below and inside the letters. So my prayer was, Father, I want to call on your name. And I had read entire books with theories explaining, well, really it's pronounced Yahweh, and really it's pronounced Yehovah, and really it's pronounced, you name it. And each one had some really good arguments. But at the end of the day, I said, well, how do I know which one is the truth? What I really want, my prayer was to be able to see it, definitive evidence in the Word of God, in the Bible. Right? The Bible was preserved for us by these master scribes who were just very meticulous in their details. They preserved the pronunciation of words from one period of history and another period of history within the biblical time. It's very precise, and I thought, if only I could see how it was written in these early vocalized manuscripts, the manuscripts with vowels. But of course, as I had this job, one of the things I saw and I'd seen before is that they don't have the full set of vowels. Now, one of the things I was told, and everyone knows, it's a fact, it's common knowledge, which is that the vowels of the name Yud He Vav He in the Bible are the vowels of Adonai, which means Lord. And I immediately saw, as I was reading these manuscripts, that was simply, it was a fact and it was common knowledge, but it was factually untrue, like provably, definitively just untrue.
Okay. Now, this is coming from someone whose actual job it is to be a proofreader, proofreaders, so that the scientific, the most accurate version of the most important Hebrew document in the Jewish world is accurate. Right. And so this isn't,
right. Well, but really, you didn't have to be a proofreader to see that when you looked in the mass manuscripts of the Bible, and particularly at that time I had access to the Leningrad Codex and the Aleppo Codex. You'd be like me saying I have a full set of purple hair, right? You don't need to be a hairdresser to know that's not true, right?
It's that obvious.
It was that obvious that the name Yud He Vav He did not have the vowels of Adonai. In fact, what it had were 2 vowels, and there was clearly a 3rd vowel that was missing.
Why is that clear that a 3rd vowel was missing?
Well, first of all, it just was missing. It was, in other words, every letter in Hebrew in that context, there's a few exceptions, but basically every letter in a word in Hebrew has to have a vowel attached to it. If it's at the end of a syllable, then it has a certain symbol that marks that. The exception would be like a final hey, which actually the name does have. But the first 3 letters of Yud, He, Vav, He, that Yud, He, and Vav had to have some vowel symbol associated with it. Even if it was the end of a syllable, there had to be some symbol associated with each letter.
So you would say it's unpronounceable?
It was absolutely unpronounceable. In other words, it was intentionally written repeatedly in both the Leningrad Codex and the Aleppo Codex in a way that no reader no Jewish reader who read Hebrew, whether it was the simplest farmer or the master scribe, would be able to read it the way it was written. It was impossible to read. And this was very frustrating to me. And I had noticed this sometime before. And I had this prayer. It was this burning desire. Father, I want to know what your name is. And not based on some man's theory, but the way it was preserved by the scribes. But the scribes didn't preserve it a way I could pronounce it. So I'm sitting there minding my own business, and I'm looking through. And you have to understand, on every page of the Bible, I'm looking at 4 sets of symbols that I have to make sure are copied exactly precisely. We have consonants, vowels, accents, and what's called Masoretic notes. And it's my job to make sure those 4 sets of symbols in the Aleppo Codex are transferred to this printed Bible. And like I said, it had been done before. And really the type of thing I was finding is, there's a little Masoretic note and it's in the wrong position, so let's correct that and move it. I mean, it was relatively trivial things that I was able to find because it was just so precisely done. And as I was doing this, I would come across the name Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, saw it all the time, almost on every page, and, noticed day after day that one of the vowels was missing, making it unpronounceable. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting there, and I find a place where the missing vowel is not missing. And it was Ezekiel 3:12, and it says, Baruch kavod Yehovah mimakomo. Blessed is the glory of Yehovah from his place. And I looked at that word Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, which was unpronounceable, and all of a sudden it had a full set of vowels, which were Yehovah. And just at that moment, I get a phone call, and the voice on the other end of the phone says, a plane just flew in the World Trade Center. And I thought, that's some kind of fluke. I didn't know. I didn't have internet access. I didn't, have a smartphone. They didn't exist yet. All I knew is this person on the other end of the phone said a plane. I figured it was like a Cessna or something, like crop duster, some small thing. I don't know. I put down the phone. I'm not even thinking about that. Maybe that was some kind of accident. What I'm thinking about is this a fluke? I just found the name with full vowels in the manuscript, in the Aleppo Codex, the most accurate manuscript. So I said, okay, I'm putting aside my work. My job is to check 4 sets of symbols. I'm going to check one word. And I'm going to just skim the pages, looking just for that one word to find a second witness. And I'm skimming the pages, page after page, keep coming across Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, the name of the Father, and the vowels missing again, unpronounceable. And I thought, it was at one time. I need a second witness. I'm flipping, and then all of a sudden, after about 15 minutes, I come across it. It's Ezekiel 28:22.
Again in Ezekiel.
Again in Ezekiel. This one's actually really significant. It's a prophecy, and I was reading Ezekiel. That's why I found it there. It's a prophecy about Sidon, and it says, and you shall prophesy concerning it, and you shall say, thus says Lord Yehovah. And Yehovah there had the full vowels, Yehovah. And what's interesting there is by tradition, when the word Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh appears next to Adonai, which is Lord, you're to read it as Elohim, which is God. And so not only was this a full set of vowels showing you the name as Yehovah, by tradition, those are not the vowels that should have been in this word, yet those are the vowels the scribe put in there. And then I get a second phone call, and the person told me, a second plane just flew into the World Trade Center. And I realized, that wasn't an accident. At that time, I had no idea who was behind it, but I knew that was on purpose. And this couldn't be just an accident either. This was something this isn't a fluke, that's for sure I knew. Now, I didn't realize the full significance. It took me time to process both things, both what happened on 9/11, probably like it did for many people, and also what happened here, what I had found. And what I didn't fully realize the significance until the 10th anniversary of 9/11. I was speaking to a friend and telling, reminiscing about what had happened. And he said, do you realize the significance of that timing? And I'll be honest, there's this expression, people who miss the forest for the trees. I'm not looking at the trees. I'm looking at the leaves under a microscope at the cells of the leaves, and I miss even the tree. I'm a detail-oriented person. It's just in my nature. So I had missed this. He said, do you realize at that exact moment when those terrorists flew their planes into the towers and they shouted out the name of their God? Because that's what they do.
Allahu Akbar.
That's what they do.
Allah is greater.
They proclaim the name of their God because their God is death, but they proclaim the name of their God because they're doing this in the name of their God, their death. And at that moment, the creator of the universe halfway across the world wanted his name to be known and allowed me to find this. And I'm the one who found it and didn't realize the full significance of that. And you have to understand, I really struggled with even sharing this because the tradition I come from, the Jewish tradition, really frowns on anything too spiritual. No, just the facts, ma'am, just the facts. In fact, I was sharing this at a conference a few years ago, and this old Jewish man comes up to me and says, "Why do you have to share the thing about the towers and the planes? Just show us what's in the manuscript." and you know, that's the tradition I came from. But looking back now, this, to me, I'm convinced more than ever that this is the hand of God. And I'm going to share something which I just told you the other day, and I just discovered myself. And I didn't know this on 9/11. I didn't know it on the 10th anniversary of 9/11. I found this out very recently. So one of the things I didn't know is how many times in the Aleppo Codex does the name appear with the full vowels? So the Aleppo Codex is the Bible. There are pages that are missing. So from the surviving pages, we have the name appearing about 4,000 times. And the question I had for years is how many times does the name appear with the full vowels in the Aleppo Codex? But the Aleppo Codex is about 600 pages that have survived. And I had looked through about 100 of them, and I found a third place. And, you know, my assumption was that if you spent an hour, you would find another place, and another hour, another place. You know, if you knew what you were looking for, that maybe every 30, 40 pages you'll find one. That was my assumption, right? Because I had found it within 15 minutes twice. So I'm sure if you did that and you had the eye for it, you'd find it twice about every 15 minutes, half hour, hour. Well, so recently I was working together with this gentleman who I call T-Bone. And I had trained him through this interaction I had with how to find the name with the full vowels in manuscripts. Now, he started out not reading Hebrew at all. And he could identify the 4 letters of the Father's name. Right. And he had this passion, this desire to try to find the Father's name with full vowels in more places. So I said, okay, you've done a few manuscripts. We've worked together on that. Would you like to do the Aleppo Codex? It's about, I think it's 594 pages that have survived, something like that. It's nearly 600 pages. And I figured I'm going to hear from him in 2 or 3 years. 3 days later, he contacts me. He said, okay, I went through the whole thing. The whole thing? And he sent me a list of places where he found it with the full vowels. I checked every single one. In some of them, he was wrong. In some of them, I'm like, oh, no, that's mold. Or that's, that's not a vowel. That's an accent mark called Orvia Mugrash. There's all kinds of things, little dots and dashes. You have to know what you're looking at. But at the end, it turned out there were 6 clear, definitive places that had the full vowels in the Aleppo Codex. In the entire thing. Out of 4,000 places, there's only 6 with the full vowels. And I found 2 of those on 9/11. And guess what? There's only 2 in the book of Ezekiel. If I had been reading in the book of Jeremiah that day, I wouldn't have even found 1, let alone 2. If I'd been reading in the book of Isaiah, I would have found 1, but not 2. It was only in Ezekiel that I could have found those 2 in that span of time in those sections that I happened to be reading. And I didn't realize this. I thought, okay, well, this is clearly the hand of God. After years, I came to accept that I found it at this timing. But there was a dimension I didn't even know about until recently. That 6 times. And I want to share the other times with the people. I'm going to show it here on the screen. So,
okay. Now,
can we do that?
Yeah, we can do that. But let me interrupt this because, what happened for me, it was years later, I was working on the book of the Revelation. And this, the name of insult was really something, a name of blasphemy. It speaks of the name of blasphemy. Yeah. And, I'm trying to work this thing through. And this name of blasphemy, it just hit me. This, as we're hearing more and more, as we know, there is a Muslim terrorist act that is happening someplace in the world every day. And most of those days, it's several times a day in the world.
Right. If you take the entire world, that's true.
That's right. So it's not America is not the center of the universe here. Mm-hmm. We've got all over the world. This is happening. And what is it that we hear just before in Israel? How many times we hear the last thing they say is Allahu Akbar. Allah is greater. And then bam, they blow themselves up, blow whatever up. And so I looked at this. What is a greater insult than to say this fictitious moon god is greater than the God of Israel? Mm-hmm. The name of insult really hit. And then realizing then when I heard your testimonies of what happened when you found it, at the very moment these people are crying out, Allahu Akbar, and this prophet from Israel came and said the Muslims, to Iceland, to say the Muslims were about to do something that was going to change the world.
I'd never even heard that before. That's interesting.
And then I arrived the day after he gets on a plane and leaves, and I'm the one that goes on national television because I'm told in Costa Rica, get on a plane and get to Iceland without having any idea why I'm there. And so that very day that really changed the world, he is not going to let his name be unknown. You had been seeking it your whole life. You've been crying out to him. You want to know, and you're one of the few people that actually have the skill level. I mean, there are nobody who graduates from an America seminary with Hebrew background that is paid to be a proofreader on the most important manuscript on the planet.
I'll tell you something, Michael. I can tell you as a fact that other people discovered this before me. In other words, there was a group of people who took the Leningrad Codex, typed up every jot and tittle into a computerized form, and it was right there. So they had, with their fingers, typed those letters, typed the full vowels, and they didn't realize the significance of what they were typing up, evidently, because they didn't. As far as I know, nobody pointed this out and said, oh, here's the name with the full vowels that you normally doesn't have. For example, the Aleppo Codex is 6,800, and that one is 28 times, and of those, about 50 have the full vowels. And even though
that's in the Leningrad?
That's in the Leningrad Codex, which is considered the second most important manuscript of the Bible after the Aleppo. So they had typed that up in the 90s, and they clearly had seen it, yet they didn't, as far as I know, didn't say, hey, over 6,000 times the name is unpronounceable, except for about 50 times here it is pronounceable. They didn't put two and two together, even though literally their eyes were on it and they were typing it. They didn't, because they weren't asking the question. Right? They were, as far as I know, they weren't even asking the question. They weren't looking for an answer. And I was, as you said, calling out and praying, Father, I want to call on your name, and not according to the traditions of men, not according to someone's theory, not according to someone's hypothesis, but based on the oracles of God, the way it was preserved by the Hebrew scribes. And until you ask that question, you could be staring it right in the face, and it won't matter. You won't realize the significance of it.
And as an Orthodox Jew, you come from the background of never pronouncing the name, having no idea, and it was absolutely verboten.
Right. Oh, and certainly as an Orthodox Jew, I knew the letters were Yud He Vav He, but no, I even as an Orthodox Jew, I don't even think that was a question that I spent too much time on. Really, it was even when I became a Karaite, there was something kind of deep in my psyche where, let's just not go there. That's kind of scary, until things were just like thrown in my face, like seeing the silver scrolls of the priestly blessing from 650 BC. And it says, and they shall place my name on the children of Israel. And there it's written in Paleo-Hebrew. It's like, well, how can I ignore that? That's actually, the name that it says they'll place my name on the children of Israel appears in Paleo-Hebrew, Yud He Vav He. And at that phase, I wasn't necessarily thinking of how to pronounce it. That wasn't so much the issue, but that's the name. Right? Yeah. Like, and that, you can't place Adonai on the children of Israel and bless them. That's not what it says. Right. That's not what God instructed the sons of Aaron. It's placing the name.
That's right. And there are no
Yehovah.
Miracles that happen in that context. But placing his name, we've seen the miracles. You've seen miracles happen. People calling on the name.
I think God can do miracles whenever he wants. And he doesn't, he doesn't need us to.
Fair enough.
So for me, what was significant is here we have the name in the manuscripts. It's not a theory. It's a fact that it's written as Yehovah. And at the time, I knew about it, really up until a year ago. I knew about it in 4 manuscripts, and about a year ago I found the 5th manuscript. As we're speaking now, I know of the name in over 50 manuscripts.
These
early
are
Masoretic
manuscripts of the Bible.
Manuscripts of the Bible, written by the Jewish scribes. If you include later Masoretic manuscripts, it's far more than 50. I'm just looking at the earlier ones. that have vowels. And can I share some of these?
I'm going to interrupt. One last thing, because I don't want to interrupt after this, because I have an idea where you're going on this. But 2001, that is when, I went from Iceland, moved everything to Israel, and that's when I moved there permanently, began the production, and I did my episode on the name. Okay? Now, Yahweh has been his name like forever for me, okay? And once I did that particular episode of A Rood Awakening, and this was duplicated. It was in every country of the world, and, eventually hundreds of thousands of these episodes are out there. I had made my commitment, and I really didn't want to listen to what he had to say, okay? Just honestly, I have too much invested in this, and yet, when the evidence started to come out, and I said, no, I have got to be honest. I have got to listen to what he says. I've seen the miracles. I've seen the hand of the Almighty lead Nehemia. I've seen him led by the Spirit, which broke all the rules that I was raised with. Okay, God can't speak to a Jew, okay, who's not a believer in Yeshua. That's where I was coming from, ladies and gentlemen. I have to admit. But yet I saw the hand of the Almighty lead him into the most amazing things that had perplexed me. And without him, I could never have published this, because I wouldn't have had the final answer on the genealogy of Yeshua without Nehemia. And it's because at that point I said, I've got to look at this. And when I did, and then I prayed for a miracle, for a woman to be raised from the dead in the name of Yahovah. That was the final thing. I said, if you want me, it's now my responsibility. Help get this message out, in that I am to stand behind Nehemia 100%. I'm asking you to raise this woman from the dead, and that is exactly what happened. Our whole staff was here to see that very event take place. Wow. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, listen up. You are listening to the Spirit of the living God leading us in this day and time. Well, Yeshua said, I will send you the Spirit to lead you into all truth. You will see how that is now come to manifest. And so, Nehemia, I'm just going to shut up.
Well, I think we probably have to take a break soon. And after the break, I'm going to bring the people. I'm going to try to bring as many of the 50 manuscripts as possible, and because I don't want people to turn off the program here and say, well, we heard it's in the manuscripts. I want them to see it for themselves.
Okay, here it is, ladies and gentlemen. This is how we're going to do this thing. This is your time to give. Give. That's it. Gone. See you in 2 minutes. Nehemia, speak.
All right, and I want the people to see this for themselves. You know, I like to say, and I was born in Chicago in Illinois, but deep in my heart, I'm from Missouri, which is the show me state. So I want people to see this for themselves. So what I didn't know until recently, until this gentleman T-Bone helped me out and went through the entire Aleppo Codex line by line, and he found in 1 Kings 8:11, it also has the full vowels. And there, I love what it says there. It says, Ki maleh kivod Yehovah et beit Yehovah. For the glory of Yehovah fills the house of Yehovah. Now the second time it says Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, it doesn't have the full vowels. It's unpronounceable technically. But the first time it does. And what happened was you had these scribes and they were copying letter by letter and then they put in the vowels and they knew they had to leave out one of the vowels to prevent people from speaking it. There was a group of movement of Karaite Jews specifically at that time in Eastern Persia who, unlike all other rabbinical and Karaite Jews, said, this one particular faction said, we must speak the name. So these scribes, when they copied it, said, well, we're not going to enable them. We're going to leave out one of the vowels to prevent them from pronouncing it, and even preventing an innocent person who maybe doesn't know about the ban on the name or forgets from accidentally pronouncing the name. So you come across it most places, it's unpronounceable, but here's one of the 6 places in the Aleppo Codex where it's definitively has the full vowels, Yehovah. Here's another one, 2 Kings 20, verse 9. And I love this. And this is actually it's kind of like one of those crossover episodes where like Batman shows up in Superman. So this is Isaiah in the Book of Kings, right? It's like, what is Isaiah doing in the Book of Kings? It's like where Batman shows up in the Superman movie. Vayomer Yeshayahu zeh lecha ha'ot. And Isaiah says, this is for you the sign, me'et Yehovah, from Yehovah. And there Yehovah has the full vowels. And I have to wonder, as the scribe is copying this and he knows he needs to leave out the vowel so those troublemaker Karaites don't pronounce it or other people don't pronounce it, and something in him puts that dot in there. And it's beautiful. It's amazing. Now, I've had people say, well, okay, that's just 2 manuscripts, the Leningrad and the Aleppo. Well, I've found it in over 50 manuscripts, and I'm going to jump ahead and share some of the other ones with the people. So the 6 most important manuscripts of the Bible, indisputably, when they print a Bible, they base it in the Aleppo Codex, but the Aleppo Codex has missing pages, so they compare it with 5 other Bibles. The Leningrad Codex, something called the British Library, or 4445, Cairo Codex of the Prophets, Damascus Crown, and Sassoon 1053. Those are the 6 key manuscripts of the Bible with vowels. They're all from the 9th and 10th century. The earliest one is the Cairo Codex of the Prophets from 895. The latest one is the Leningrad Codex, which is actually from 1008. It's the latest one of the group. And all 6 of them have the full vowels. Here it is in the Leningrad Codex, Leviticus 25:17. And I love the verse once again. Ki ani Yehovah Elohechem, for I am Yehovah your God, and you can't miss it. It has the full vowels. It says Yehovah. That's a fact. It's not an opinion. It's not a theory. It's not something someone had in a vision, and you know what? Maybe people have had visions. I've had people, write to me and say, well, but God personally told me his name is Yahuwashi. I can't argue with what God personally told you. Here it is in the manuscripts, the oracles of God. Or 4445 in the British Library, Leviticus 22:9, it says, Ani Yehovah Mekadsham, I am Yehovah who sanctifies them. And indisputably there, it's the full vowels. Cairo Codex of the Prophets, Ezekiel 7:14, again in Ezekiel, he says, Vidatem ki ani Yehovah, and you shall know that I am Yehovah. And I love this one in Damascus Crown, it's the Shema. In Deuteronomy 6:4. It's when they asked Yeshua, what's the most important commandment? And in the version, I believe in Mark, he says, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart. And here it says, Shema Yisrael, Yehovah Eloheinu, Yehovah Echad, Ve'ahavta et Yehovah Elohecha b'chol levavecha. And 3 times in a row, Yehovah has the full vowels.
Incredible.
Beautiful. Now, I could go through everyone. Here's a Sassoon 1053. I don't have time to go through all the manuscripts. I want to bring the highlights. And some of the highlights I have are special types of manuscripts. Now, the most accurate manuscript even in ancient times, it was recognized that the most accurate manuscript of the Bible in existence was the Aleppo Codex, written by the master scribe Aaron ben Asher, completed in Tiberias in the year 924. It turns out we have 2 manuscripts written by Aaron ben Asher's father, which is significant because where do you think Aaron learned how to write Bibles? From his father, whose name was Moshe ben Asher, Moses ben Asher. Ben Asher wasn't the name of his father, meaning Ben means son, but that was the name of the family. So the Ben Asher family of scribes go back to around the year 600 AD at least. And so the father, Moshe ben Asher, wrote the Cairo Codex of the Prophets in the year 895, which I already showed, had the full vowels. What I recently learned is that there was a second Moshe ben Asher manuscript, which is in the Russian National Library in St. Petersburg, Russia. And that's the location where they have over 1,500 Bible manuscripts. Many of them, not all of them, but many of them are from this early period. And one of them, which is known as Ivrei 2, Ivrei means Hebrew manuscript, Ivrei 2, B188, meaning it's 188 out of 1,500. And that is from the year 908, also written by Moshe ben Asher, and it also has the full vowels. Now, what's really, really cool, Michael, is for years, I mean, since the 90s, when I was studying biblical, actually even in the 80s, back when I was in high school and I was studying about the Bible, and I wanted to know, where did our Bible come from? And I would read about the Ben Asher family back then in the 80s. I would sneak out of high school and go down to downtown Chicago to the Spertus College of Judaica and read these books about where we got our Bible. And it came from the Ben Asher family of scribes in Tiberias between around the year 600 and 1000. And the greatest of them was Ben Asher and his father Moshe ben Asher, and there were other ones. And I had read even back then in the 80s that there was a rival family of scribe called the Ben Naphtali family. So you had Ben Asher and Ben Naphtali. But Ben Naphtali, we don't have their manuscripts anymore. We only have Ben Asher. That's what I knew back from the 80s. That's what I knew even 6 months ago. And as I was researching this topic, and I want to back up, I shared in a previous episode about how I found 10 rabbis who say the name is Yehovah. And when I found that a few months ago, I decided I have 10 rabbis, but only at that time 5 manuscripts of the Bible with the full vowels. I said, I need to find 10 manuscripts of the Bible. And I thought, how will I do this? It's been 16 years since I discovered this. And in 16 years, I only knew about 5 manuscripts. And now I want to double that to 10. And what I didn't know is just at the time I was doing this, there's a worldwide concerted effort to digitize all Hebrew manuscripts. So I was able to look at manuscripts that just a year ago I wouldn't have been able to see. And as I was delving through these manuscripts, I found 2 Ben Naphtali manuscripts. The rival family of scribes to Ben Asher. And you have to understand...
And these didn't exist as far as the scholar world was concerned.
They existed. I just didn't know about them, and maybe 2 or 3 people in the world knew about them. But if you could read the manual of Masoretic studies, and it will tell you they don't exist. What it will tell you is we have a list of what's called the differences between Ben Asher and Ben Naphtali. And so we know, for example, and I know this sounds very technical, but for example, when you have in the Bible the word to Israel, so in Ben Asher it will say Le Yisrael, and in Ben Naphtali it will write L'Israel. It's a contraction, like you say in English cannot and can't, right? So and those are some of the identifying characteristics of Ben Naphtali. And as far as I knew, that was just we only had the list of telling us the differences. And you can read the manuals on Masoretic studies, and it'll tell you, yeah, we don't have that anymore. Turns out 2 of the manuscripts have been identified that are Ben Naphtali manuscripts definitively. One of them is, again, from the Russian National Library. This one is Ivrei 2 B5. And the other one associated with Ben Naphtali is Ivrei 2 B63. And both of those are Ben Naphtali manuscripts, and both of them have the full vowels, Yehovah. So it's not only the Ben Asher family of scribes, it's their rivals who also knew that the name was Yehovah and occasionally put that in their manuscripts. They also were part of this, what I call the conspiracy of silence. They didn't want the Jewish multitude speaking this name, but in their head they knew it, and as they copied, every once in a while they put in those full vowels and show you it's Yehovah. And I got to say that, if it was a random dot, then you would have some places it would say Yehiva, and other places it would say Yehuva, and other places it would say Yahava, but it never says that. It's always Yehovah. whenever they put in the full vowels. So, very cool stuff. Ben Asher, Ben Naphtali, and very, very recently I discovered the earliest dated manuscript that at least I've seen with my own eyes, which is, I mentioned the Cairo Codex of the Prophets from 894. Turns out there's one that's 1 year older from the year 894. And this is also from the Russian National Library, which has probably the greatest collection of Hebrew manuscripts in the world. And this is Ivrei to B100. And B100, what's really fascinating about this is this was the personal Bible of a famous rabbi named Saadia Gaon. Saadia Gaon was the leading rabbi of the 9th and 10th century. He was actually literally the leading rabbi of the Jews of Babylon in the 10th century. And he had a famous dispute with one of the other rabbis, Ben Meir. But what he's really famous for in Jewish history is he wrote a book proving that the oral law is true and the Karaites are wrong. So he's known as the bane of the Karaites, the one who came up and stood up to the Karaites and theologically slaughtered them and defended rabbinical Judaism against those Karaites who were denying the oral law. That's what, say Saadia Gaon to any Orthodox Jew and he'll say, oh yeah, the guy who refuted the Karaites. That's what he's known for. And we have his personal Bible, which is unbelievable. His personal Bible, it's dated to the year 894 when he was 12 years old. So he didn't copy this, but this was may have even been his bar mitzvah gift. Like, this is the Bible that he trained with, and we know that because it says it in the Bible. It says his name. And it has the full vowels, Yehovah. and the reason that's significant is Aaron ben Asher, the scribe from Tiberias, he was indisputably a Karaite. We know 100%. There's a question of whether his father was. His father may have been a rabbinite. We don't know for sure. But there's no question Aaron ben Asher that wrote the Aleppo Codex was a Karaite. The Cairo Codex of the Prophets is in the Karaite synagogue in Cairo today. I mean, that even to this day, that's where it is. And so the great opponent of the Karaite, his Bible also has Yehovah. So this isn't just some crazy Karaite thing. This is both Karaite scribes and the leading rabbinical leader of the 9th and 10th century has it in his Bible. So, I mean, these are two completely different witnesses that you can't argue, well, they were colluding to create some kind of lie. If one of them would have changed the Bible and written something that the other knew not to be true, he would have been called out on it. And they would have said, can you believe those Karaites? They changed the Bible and made it Yehovah, and really it's Yehuvuhu. But we don't find that. To find that, you'll have to go to Facebook. That doesn't exist in any Jewish sources. So we've got Ben Asher, Ben Naphtali, Saadia Gaon, and we have right now I'm looking at a list here, and I'm going to show this list to the people here. There's 52 different items on the list. One of them is in the Vatican. I've had people write to me, Nehemia, you found all these manuscripts. Can you look and see if it's in the Vatican? Been there, done that. Manuscript Hebrew 448 in the Vatican, which you can see online. That's the beauty of it. We don't know what the Vatican's hiding, but we know they've put hundreds of Hebrew manuscripts online. These are manuscripts that they traveled around the Jewish communities of Europe and stole. They bring the Inquisition to town, go to the synagogue, burn all the Talmuds, or some of them, and they bring these manuscripts. And Michael, I want to just share something so people understand this is not a small thing that we're able to go online and see a manuscript of, like, it sounds trivial. Yeah, you went online and found some manuscript. This is, when I was a kid in the 80s, we had this rabbi come and visit my school. I was going to a Jewish school in Chicago, an ultra-Orthodox school. And this was a rabbi who traveled, who spent months of the year at a time in Rome, going to the Vatican every day. And the reason he did that is one of the most accurate copies of the Mishnah, now we're not talking about the Bible, of the Mishnah, the key book of the oral law, is the Vatican manuscript. And at the time, the Vatican would not let any Jew have a copy of this Vatican manuscript. In fact, he told us he would go into the Vatican and they'd let him see it, and he could sit there with it, but he wasn't allowed to take pen and paper. So, and I remember this like it was yesterday. He came and talked to my whole school, and he explained how he would go in there every day, and he would sit there with the manuscript, and he would read the sentences over and over, memorizing the vowels and the consonants, and then he would run outside and write down outside. He was allowed to, and write down what he had seen, and then he'd go back a second time, and he would memorize a page, and this guy must have had some kind of amazing memory. And he would memorize another page, and he'd run outside and copy it down. And he did this day after day until he got through the entire Mishnah, which is 63 tractates. It's not a small thing. So if I wanted to see the Vatican manuscript in the 1980s, I could have gone there and seen it, but I wouldn't have been able to take photos. I wouldn't be able to take a pen and paper. Now I can go online and take a screenshot. In fact, I'm going to show you a screenshot right now of this Vatican manuscript, which has the full vowels. Don't believe me, you can see it yourself. And here it is, 1 second. So this is manuscript.
Well, these haven't been seen by the outside world until you're putting them up on the screen, many of these.
You could go and see it yourself if you want to search through a manuscript online and you know how to do it, and you're not mistaking it for a Revia Mugrash or some other kind of action.
Yeah, and some of these weren't even online just a few months ago.
Absolutely, right. So some of these are fresh online, and again, this is part of a worldwide effort by universities and institutions to digitize all Hebrew manuscripts. So here, I love this passage. It's Genesis 21:33 in the Vatican Hebrew 448 manuscript, folio 19R, and it's Abraham, and it says, Vayikra sham b'shem Yehovah el olam. And he called there in the name of Yehovah, the eternal God. And there you see Yehovah with the full vowels in the Vatican manuscript that we don't have to go and beg to see and then run out and copy. And then you'd have to take my word for it. You can see it for yourself. I mean, this is we live in a time of increased knowledge, Michael. This is a fulfillment of prophecy. I want to bring one other manuscript, and I got to give a preface to it, Michael. So, well, maybe I'll bring a few more. So one of the really interesting things that I'd learned about this in the 80s at the Spertus College of Judaica when I'm reading books when I'm supposed to be in high school, and I'm reading these academic books about the Masoretic text. And one of the things I read is that the vowels we use today are the Tiberian pointing. Every Hebrew book you'll ever see has Tiberian pointing. Now, okay, but there's two other systems of pointing of vowels that existed in the Jewish history. And one of them is called Babylonian pointing. And the third one is called the Land of Israel pointing. In English, they, for some reason, call it Palestinian pointing. In Hebrew, it's called Nikud Eretz Yisraeli, or Land of Israel pointing. Mm-hmm. And the reason it's called pointing is that the vowels are a series of dots and dashes, a lot of dots. So Tiberian pointing, both Ben Asher and Ben Naphtali were families in Tiberias. And every manuscript they produced was Tiberian pointing. Every Bible I ever read, every Israeli newspaper I ever read, if it had vowels or book, has Tiberian pointing. Babylonian pointing is a different system. And to be honest, I think I had seen a page here and a page there. Oh, at Hebrew University, we learned the Targum in Aramaic, and that's written with Babylonian pointing. But I may have seen a page here and there of the Bible until recently with Babylonian pointing. But one of my dreams in life was to find out, what is the name Yehovah? Does that appear with vowels in Babylonian pointing? And now that these manuscripts are accessible, I was able to search, and with the help of T-Bone, who is this gentleman who doesn't even know Hebrew, but he has this ability to identify God's name, and I've got to verify and check what he does, but he's got this incredible ability to scan. So together we found in a manuscript in London in the British Library, Oriental 1473, that's the designation of the manuscript, or 1473. It has Babylonian pointing, and it has the full vowels, Yehovah. And let me show it to the people here. I mean, it's breathtaking that you have this not only in the Tiberian system from Karaites and rabbinical Jews, Ben Asher and Ben Naphtali, you have it in the Babylonian pointing. And you have to understand, Michael, the Babylonian pointing isn't just a different set of symbols. It's not just a different font. The Babylonian pointing represents a different dialect of Hebrew. And what do I mean by that? So the name Moses in Hebrew is Moshe, but that's in Tiberian Hebrew. In Babylonian pointed Hebrew, it's not Moshe, it's Moshe. And so it's not just that the symbols look different, they're used in different places. Another example they bring is the word milchama, which is war. And in Babylonian Hebrew, it's malchama. Also means war, no difference in meaning, but it's pronounced differently and given a different vowel. And they could put the vowel milchama. They have the same some of the vowels are the same. They have an E, they can put that in there, but it represents a different dialect of Hebrew. And most significantly, perhaps, is that Tiberian Hebrew has 7 vowels and Babylonian Hebrew only has 6 vowels. In other words, this goes back to the ancient tribes of Israel who spoke Hebrew differently with different pronunciations. And both of those dialects of Hebrew preserve God's holy name, the name of the Father, as Yehovah. Now, the Shva looks different, and the Cholam looks different, and the Kamatz looks different. You can see it here on the screen. But that is in Babylonian pointed Hebrew, a manuscript preserved in Yemen, Yehovah. I mean, it's at this point we have it from Ben Asher, Ben Naphtali, Sadia Gaon himself, the leading rabbi, and Babylonian pointing, which is a completely different dialect of Hebrew. You're having all those different sources. It's quite definitive. I want to bring something else, Michael, and this is a bit technical, so I want the people to bear with me. And I call this, Michael, the B-52 bomber of Hebrew manuscripts. And the reason I call it that, it's kind of cute. So B-52 is the shelf designation in the shelf mark in the Russian National Library. It goes up to 1,500 or so, and this is the 52nd manuscript that they cataloged.
Bible 52.
Bible, right. It's Bible manuscript number 52. I call it the B-52 bomber of Hebrew manuscripts. Now, I want to back up before I bring the name, and I want to talk about Adonai. The word Adonai, which means Lord, legitimately appears in the Hebrew Bible over 400 times. I think it's about 434, something like that, give or take, times. And it means Lord. Like when Moses prays to God, he says, "Be Adonai," which means, "Oh, my Lord." So Adonai appears in the Bible about 400 plus times. The name Yehovah appears 6,827, so it's clearly more emphasized and more important. So this is very technical, guys. Bear with me. I'm going to show you this, guys. So when Adonai is preceded by a preposition, I know there's people who are tuning out when they hear prepositions. When it's preceded by the word to, in Hebrew, when you say to the Lord, that's La Adonai. La means to. La Adonai. And you get this cluster of La-ah. And Hebrew does this thing just like English does. You say cannot, you say can't. La Adonai becomes Ladonai. And what happens is the vowel drops from the aleph, and the aleph is silent. And in fact, it doesn't have a vowel attached to it to show you that the aleph is silent. This happens a lot with aleph. For example, the aleph in Bereshit has no vowel. And that's not unusual with aleph. So aleph in the middle of a word, for example. Hey in the middle of the word, that is extremely unusual. There's specific examples where it can't. One example where it can happen, not in the name. But the aleph of Adonai is silent in Ladonai. Why is this important? The argument is, they say, yeah, Nehemia, you found this in 52 manuscripts. Wonderful. But don't you know, you're so silly. Those aren't the vowels of Yehovah, of the name. They're the vowels of Adonai. And that thing that you say is an the Shva, it really is the of Adonai, and there's some rule of guttural letters of why it's not written that way. And if that makes no sense to you, you're following, because like that's complete gibberish. I'm quoting what they're saying, and it's utter gibberish. So here's the thing. They're claiming when I see Yehovah, E-O-A, that belongs to Adonai. We just established when Adonai is preceded by the to, by la, by the word that means to in Hebrew, there's no vowel in the aleph. So what would happen if I showed you Yehovah preceded by the lamed? Should there be a vowel in the yud? And the answer is obviously not, because that vowel represents the aleph of Adonai. That's their claim. And here it is in the B-52 bomber. In this manuscript, we have La Yehovah. And not only does it have the O, which is usually missing, it has the Shva in the Yud. And you can't say that Shva, that of Yehovah, that belongs to the Aleph of Adonai, because the Aleph of Adonai doesn't have a vowel in La Adonai, La Adonai. The vowel is dropped. So this is the B-52 bomber of manuscripts, Michael. I've discovered 5 manuscripts that have the same phenomenon. 5 manuscripts I found where it has La Yehovah. And by the way, it's not just La Yehovah, it's Ka Yehovah, Va Yehovah, and Ba Yehovah. It's three prepositions and the word and, where the Aleph in Adonai is silent, and so the Yud should have no vowel, and it has the vowels Yehovah. This can only belong to the name Yehovah, to the name of the Father. It can't have anything to do with Adonai, And I read you the quote from the rabbi in 1896 who says there's no trace here of the vowels of Adonai. I think I read that. He says in 1896, Jacob Bachrach, he says there's no trace here of the word Adonai. These are the vowels that belong to the name of the Father alone and nothing else. And this is proven definitively by the manuscripts. One last thing, again, a little bit technical. So, and I see I have 2 minutes, so I'll do this real fast. So when the final hey of a word is silent, sometimes the scribe wrote a line over it to indicate that. That line is called rafeh. It shows you the hey is silent. In fact, in the example I'm showing here with La Yehovah, you see the word isheh, which means fire offering, and the hey in isheh is silent, so they wrote a line over it. They didn't always do it, but often they did it in some manuscripts. Now, in this La Yehovah and 5 other manuscripts, 6 manuscripts, there's Yehovah with a line over the hey that shows you the final hey is silent. Okay, no problem. But if those are the vowels of Adonai, the y, the final letter of Adonai, is not silent. And so there's no way that line, that Raphael line that tells you the last letter is silent, can have anything to do with Adonai. This proves definitively that these are the vowels of the name of the creator of the universe, of the Father. And I can't emphasize how important this is, because the opponents to this will say, but the prepositions, what about the prepositions? Oh my God, the prepositions. They show you that these are not the vowels of the name, they're the vowels of Adonai, and here it's the very prepositions that prove definitively that these are the vowels of the name of the Father alone. Boom, drop the mic. I mean, so it's over. It's it.
So, all those who call upon the name of Yehovah will be saved. The Gentiles in the end of days who repent and admit that we have inherited lies from our forefathers, then the Gentiles will be made, he will make known his hand, his might, and they will know his name. Ladies and gentlemen, here it is. Now, 2 decades in which I've been involved with Nehemia on this, and it's time for everyone to take this seriously. If you're around people who say, oh, no, I've got reasons why, and I know his name is this, I know his name is that, until you have read his book, Shattering the Conspiracy of Silence, and they have watched this entire series, and the one that we did before then, until then, ladies and gentlemen, all it is blowing smoke. All it is pretending. We have listened to and seen so many representations on the internet, on YouTube, of people just making bald-faced lies as statements in fact, who know nothing about what they're talking about, but yet are pulling people down a path. We are doing this to save your life. We're doing this because this is the Almighty making known his ways in this time, because Israel must call upon the name of Yehovah. What's going to happen in Jerusalem, it will be essential. What's happening among the Gentiles around the world, it will be essential, because the day of trouble is upon us. The brimstone is about to hit the fan, and this is the very time that the Almighty says not only the Gentiles, but also all of Israel, the Jews, will call upon the name of Yehovah and will be saved. So, Nehemia, thanks for being with us. It's been a slice of heaven. And would you please close with the Aaronic blessing, just as we read in the ancient text.
Yehovah, you revealed this name to Moses. And in number 6, you gave this name to Aaron and his descendants. And you said, and they shall place my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. And that blessing was Yevarechecha Yehovah v'yishmerecha. Yehovah bless you and keep you. Ya'er Yehovah panav elecha v'chuneka. Yehovah shine his face towards you and be gracious towards you. Yisa Yehovah panav elecha. Yehovah lift his face towards you. V'yasem lecha shalom. And give you peace. Amen.
Amen. Well, you are all invited into the end time revival in which his name will be known throughout all of the earth. Shabbat Shalom, Torah fans. Shavua Tov. Have a good week. We'll see you back here next week. Shabbat Night Live. Lehi Throat.